J.T. Crowley is Talking Books. On this show, you'll hear from emerging talent and seasoned veterans from around the world. They'll give you their take on the writing process and how to create the secret sauce of page-turning deliciousness. Let's get into that magical mixture of the art and science of creativity. Here's J.T. Crowley, author of The Smart Kids, and your podcast host.
Hello, everyone. I'm J.T. Crowley, and today on my show, I'm delighted to welcome Elaine Chandler-Harris from Chicago in the United States of America to talk about her startling book, and it is startling, everybody, Linkages. Elaine is a retired middle grade high school teacher, a job she loved and which meant so much to her. She taught languages, reading, amongst other subjects, but she was also, apart from being a teacher, she worked in, for a considerable amount of time, public relations. Now, she has one son, Gregory, 3 grandchildren, and the split is 2 girls and 1 boy. And she's got 2 great-grandchildren, 1 of each. And when you look at her, you're thinking, nah, she can't be a great-grandmother. She's, now, that face is not a great-grandmother. But she is, everybody. Even I was shocked. Elaine likes to be her own boss and loves the freedom of having the choice of doing all the things she could never get round to doing when she was younger. Like most authors, the idea of her book lingered in the background for quite a while, gathering dust, so to speak, until COVID and lockdown struck, which gave her more time on her hands. Therefore, she dusted off the covers, blew the dust off these sheets, and finally put the book together with a lot of help from her editing team at Trafford and other friends as well. So without further ado, and less of my chit-chat, let's get her onto the show to reveal what lurks between these pages. And boy, there's a lot of story in this book, everybody. There's a lot lurking in these pages. Elaine, the floor is yours. Come and join me.
Thank you, John. Glad to be with you.
Oh, when I've read this book and I thought, ooh, this is hot. This is mind-blowing. And I'm thinking, I need to ask this lady a few questions here as to what and why she wrote this book. So let's find out, everybody, okay? Elaine, for me, I found this a deeply disturbing book around a very dysfunctional family, and they are dysfunctional, believe you me, everybody. What compelled you to write such an evocative, vivid, graphic storyline? Was it because you yourself saw and witnessed these things, both in your personal and professional life? So what was going on in society around you? Where does this story come from and why?
You know, John, every time I give the book to someone or someone is going to purchase the book, I tell them it's hard. It's a hard read. You're going to want to put it down between chapters 1 and 4. But if you could get past that,
yeah,
you're on the ride that you'll never ride again. Actually, had too much on my time teaching one summer off, and I was watching Oprah Winfrey's show. And she had this father, 45, 17-year-old daughter on her show, and they were in a consensual sexual relationship. I couldn't fathom it. I couldn't see how that was possible. And as I looked at the father, he was a wily person, wily creature. And I said, this is absolute manipulation of this teenage girl. I had already done the framework for a novel, a family saga. And I ended up dropping them into the storyline. And it's not based on anything that they said on the show. It took a lot of imagination on my part. It took a lot of delving into those sorts of relationships on my part. Thinking back, have I ever known anyone in a relationship like this before? And so I just set myself free. I set aside all my moral issues about it and all my prejudices about it. And I wrote it from the standpoint of people being in love, the love of a sister for her brother, a love of a niece for her uncle. Because without the love element, I saw no way for those sort of relationships to exist. So that's how that came about, John.
I see. Let's talk about some of the issues, Elaine, that you go into in the book. And of course, the biggest issue for me that lies at the heart, the core of this book, is the incestual relationship between Mamie and Spanky, brother and sister. And that part of the story, which is set in the late 1930s, early 1940s, in and around Mississippi, was incest. So I was thinking, was incest prevalent among the Black African American community that much in those days? Of course, it would be a totally taboo subject. It would never be talked about in public, but was it there behind the scenes? Is that why you chose to give Mamie and Spanky these characteristics? Because it is the incestual relationship.
In my formative years, in my teens, I read a book that involved a father who was sexually active with his daughter, and she ended up getting pregnant by him. Supposedly, the mother knew nothing about this, yet all three of them slept in the same bed. I reached back into the stories that I heard as a kid, you know, the hush-hush stories that we were not supposed to hear about the uncle who was sleeping with the cousin daughter, you know, niece rather, cousins who actually married each other. So, yeah, that was the background for it, John. I didn't have to reach too deep into my own imagination. There were actual examples. And when you research that topic, it's just amazing. It's overwhelming. It happens more often than we would ever want to admit. And no, we don't talk about those things. Those are hush-hush topics.
Certainly in those days you didn't.
Yes. Yes.
And make it very clear, it's not just the Black African American community. Incest happens in all communities.
Yes, it does.
So I want to move on here, Elaine, because there's another issue here. I want to go to Raphael. Now, Raphael is the eldest son of Lottie.
Yeah.
Lottie, everybody, is the daughter of Mamie.
Yes.
Now, Lottie, we will come on to in a minute because, she's got her own characteristics. Believe you me, everybody. We've only touched the icing here. We haven't got down to the cake yet. And she sure is the cake.
Yeah. Yes.
So you're talking here about with Raphael, suicide. He's a young guy finding it difficult to cope with rejection, forming relationships, and his suicide while at university in Memphis area has a profound effect on all the family members.
Yes.
This was a character who witnessed and saw things that at his tender age should have never seen, never have witnessed, and never had been put in a certain position. That position, I'm not going to divulge everybody, because if you want to find out what that position is, you've got to read the book. And I'm not going to give that away. Why did you create Raphael? Was this to talk about these issues? Is this important to you?
Raphael was extremely important to me. When he was a child, I'm going to say this, he sat on Spanky's knee and was shoved off and, just totally talked to very abrasively at that time by his father. He turned off. He said to himself, I will never call you father again. You don't exist to me. And that was the beginning of him having a negative attitude about his father. He didn't feel loved by his father. He desired it, but it just wasn't there. So Raphael is an accumulation of all the frustration, all the pain, all the hatred that others were not able to express, and he himself was not able to verbally express, but it came out in the nuances of his personality and his emotions and his attitudes and his approach to life. So he's essential. He's essential.
Mm. Of course, it was the relationship with Eloise, and it was his friend at college. It was there, he was falling in love with Eloise, but she didn't love him in the end, and she went for his friend, and he couldn't handle that. And all the other baggage that you give him, that was just one step too far.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. What I found, Elaine, particularly disturbing was the storyline you gave Vicky. Now, Vicky, everybody, is the daughter of Lottie. So Lottie has 3 children. She has Raphael, she has Vicky, and she has Teddy.
Yeah.
And Lottie is the daughter of Mamie. So that's the line. Mamie, Lottie, then the 3 kids. Vicky, who is the middle child, here you're delving into troubling waters here, you're talking about child molestation, from within the family, and teenage rape. And to be honest with you, Elaine, I'm amazed that she comes out as a reasonably balanced person when you consider some of all the other characters that are in this book. Did you give Vicky this storyline deliberately so that you could talk about child molestation and teenage rape and how the family dealt with that?
Absolutely, John. Absolutely. Another more prevalent topic does not get discussed outside of a family or outside of those intimate people in our lives. Teenage girls are so abused. And in teaching, that reinforced that fact for me. The uncles, the dates, the strangers. I would ask in my classroom how many girls were virgins. Out of 25 kids, I may have 3 girls who were virgins, and we're talking about 13 and 14-year-old girls. It disturbs me greatly. So yes, that was intentional, John. That was intentional. She dealt with it, but if you notice, she's restricted for the rest of her life. She's not able to deal with a sexual relationship with her boyfriend.
Terrence.
We don't know if she'll ever be able to deal with that. So, there are consequences beyond our understanding, beyond our knowledge, really, of what goes on with our teenage girls.
But I like how you gave the character Terrence, he's a young guy, and you gave him such emotion, and he understood, once she told him what had happened, how he gently dealt with her, and just said, I will give you plenty of